First of all, I'd like to say good evening to all of you. Thanks so much for making the session. And I want to say a huge thank you to the Human Rights Foundation for bringing us up to talk about such an important topic as some of the work we've been doing in Africa. So just to give you guys a big kind of overview of what I'd like to achieve here is not only to show you guys what we've done in Africa over the last couple of years, building the open source space, but also to kind of connect exactly where it fits into the Human Rights Foundation fight, or I guess the general fight for financial freedom around the world. But more importantly, to kind of have a critical mass of understanding in terms of where we can go next from all the great work we've been doing. So first and foremost, my name is Abubakar Nur Khalil. I am a Bitcoiner at heart, so I'm one of the board members at BTrust. I'm also the CEO at BTrust, where essentially we're designed to decentralize Bitcoin development in the global south. I also run a Bitcoin VC, work on articles essentially on Forbes, and a bunch of other stuff in the Bitcoin space. Now, we're at a stage where around the world, all economies are essentially interconnected. The world is hyper-globalized. The internet has ushered in a new environment for us to have highly connected ecosystems across a variety of key disciplines. Now with that, we already have finances essentially highly linked, and digital finance essentially being the center of that. And that's kind of where Bitcoin fits into all the plays essentially, and kind of the dynamics. So we're at a stage where essentially Bitcoin has gone from a highly small tool where a handful of activists didn't necessarily see it as something that was could be used essentially, all the way up to now where millions of people around the world, from activists all the way up to technologists and individuals really who care about having a last vanguard for protecting their financial freedom. But the challenge is, we're at a stage where there's a lot that needs to be built out really quickly, but also with a specific lens in mind, where it prioritizes individuals around the world that really need this tool at heart. And in 2021, Jack Dorsey, as well as Jay-Z, essentially looked at this problem carefully by kind of creating BTrust, which is essentially an organization fit for this type of purpose of ensuring that individuals around the world that actually face these problems get to have a say in terms of the development. So they seeded the organization with 500 Bitcoin, and we've been on a mission dedicated to ensure that we decentralize the amount of development happening on the ground to specifically account for these type of people. Now, unfortunately, we're at a stage where the majority of all the development happening in the Bitcoin ecosystem is not necessarily built by those who face these issues that I've been describing on the ground. So we're at a stage where we need to have a critical mass of individuals building Bitcoin who are essentially the majority. And the majority of those people are essentially who I believe are the critical allies for human rights activists, which are individuals that face the same amount of financial repression all across these ecosystems from different parts of the world, specifically in the global south. And in terms of the work we've done in the last 3 years, we've gone from a handful of developers being trained up to a critical mass of developers essentially working at critical parts across the Bitcoin ecosystem. So all the way from protocol development to frontier technology around the Lightning Network, but all with a single lens in mind. We don't want people to suffer the same way we've been suffering. We want to provide the same benefits we've had and enjoyed from the Bitcoin ecosystem to ensure that it thrives essentially into the future. Now, in terms of the progress we've made so far, so from last year to this date, essentially, we've given out over 30 grants, half of which go directly for developer funding, for long-term funding for them. And the majority of that has been kind of looking at the pipeline at a larger scale, so ensuring that we have the gateways funded, that's the events, conferences, etc., all the way up to developer education programs, leading up until the primary case that we have, which is essentially funding developers. So far, I've reached 3,400 developers. And in terms of the next steps, if there are any developers in the crowd or around the world watching this that are specifically in the global south, specifically in Africa, we have 3 essential ways you can get in touch with us, or I guess interact or kind of get involved. One is ensuring that you kind of get into our pathways, which we've designed as 5 essential paths for individuals, so all the way from beginner levels to ensuring that you could actually contribute long-term. And then for those who are already existing developers, we have a variety of funding sources for them. So whether you're running events, but primarily developers, you could also get that. And for individuals who aren't necessarily developers, but would like to see kind of the development and things that we have on the ground, we have BitDevs all across Africa. So those are Bitcoin developer meetings where you can see it in Kampala, Uganda, Lagos, etc. And finally, what I like to say is, we're at a point where we need to do a lot more in a short amount of time, because we need to critically aggregate all the individuals that are trying to produce value around the world, but more critically from the lens of ensuring that the final hope we have around the world for ensuring that we maintain our financial freedom, which is Bitcoin, is not only preserved, but around for future generations to enjoy. That's how we're doing all this work. Thank you so much.